A little of everything, really. The feed value is number one, really, because that's it. We're limited acres, and we got to grow as much feed as we possibly can, and high quality feed on these acres. Pest management, yeah, a little bit. The pollinators, that's all the Facilia is for, is to bring in your pollinators and beneficial insects. When you can walk through and see all sorts of ladybugs, that's a good day. Yeah, soil health for sure. Like there is some that are just soil builders.
I'm looking for getting the volume. So for silage, you need the volume there to get your tonnage and and a good quality feed. And we've been playing with different stuff, and we try and keep our feed tests have been coming back at optimal, and we're happy with that.
Again, depending what I'm wanting to do, whether my focus is to get grazing or forage production, or if I'm simply trying to get a root system into the ground. The different species will do different things. So yeah, depends a little bit on the focus, I guess.
It's all aspects for sure. I mean, we try and say, how can we go into next year knowing that we put back what we need to grow the crop again and increased, fertility and everything, versus just overdoing it on, say, a grass or a cereal type crop that really takes your nutrients out. So that is definitely, you try and assess every piece of land individually and say to ourselves, what does this thing need? What are we lacking? What do we need to increase here? But in all reality, if you're kind of not a real manager, or you don't want to spend a bunch of time, what we're seeing is just having at least a 5-way blend. You're going to see benefits for sure if you get the right blend. It gets better and better. So if you don't want to get into the science of it all, it still goes back to just doing it. Just get a mix together of some sort and just do it.
What's supposed to be here is oats, barley, sunflowers, Bayou kale, horizon peas, crimson clover, frosty clover, millet, Italian ryegrass, Facilia. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, and lots of hairy vetch. Yeah, there should be hairy vetch in there somewhere. There it is. I'd look at it.
Yeah. Did you design this mix yourself?
Yes, I did.
And what was the thought process behind some of the species in the mix?
I went with a mixture of cool and warm season grasses and broadleafs, and we got a forb and legumes, and we just try and grow everything. That way, if whatever the weather does, something should grow.
Do you have any species that have like a permanent spot in your mix, and why?
Hairy vetch and sunflowers. Hairy vetch because it's the best legume that we can get. It just grows really, really well here. We can get some pretty extreme biomass out of it. Sunflowers, so the hairy vetch has something to climb, and hopefully it'll stay up. Yeah, those two for sure. I really like crimson. I like most everything that I grow. We trade some things in and out, but it's very little that we trade in and out, really.
Is there any species you find doesn't work in the piece?
So, yeah, there is. A lot of your warm season stuff doesn't work. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've tried a lot of stuff at the research farm, and that's where I get a lot of my inspiration for changing up my mixes, is what does grow or doesn't grow at the research farm, because it's so close to our place, where our soils are a lot the same.
Hairy vetch, crimson clover, kale, turnips, and tillage radish. And if I'm grazing or silaging, it's either oats or barley.
Cool. Did you design that mix yourself?
Somewhat. I've tweaked it here and there. Some years some things don't work as good for us, and You know, we've had Italian ryegrass, and it don't seem to grow very good where we're at, but yet other people have grown it and they're really happy with it. So we kind of tweak it there, and I think we've got it down pretty good now.
It depends a little bit what I'm trying to do. I did quite a bit of experimenting this year, several different mixes and blends, but I usually try to make sure that there's grass species as well as legumes and some broadleaf species in there. So depending what I'm trying to do, if I want to make sure that it's going to terminate with winter kill, I'll make sure it's strictly annuals. One that I really like is hairy vetch, which is a biannual, so you have to keep that in mind when you plant that.
There's been the first few years we tried a little bit of everything, and like I say, we're still tweaking and we still play, but I would say hairy vetch is one of our main go-tos because it's such a nitrogen producer. So we typically, you'll find hairy vetch in every one of our cocktail mixes. And then we do some sunflower, and that's, I mean, the real benefit there is just the mycorrhizae fungi they always talk about, and it looks pretty, so we just like to put it in. But it's like, we'll typically have a 5 to 8 weight blend. And so it's barley, hairy vetch, sunflower, crimson clover, oats, that type of thing. But we have found that if you get too heavy on your brassicas and green leafy material, when you chop it into forage, it's so high in moisture content that it turns to slop, and it's not. So there is a balance. I'm not saying don't use brassicas or whatever, but that's the key, is just finding the right balance of each, plant or species, because we've overdone it at times on some, and then it kind of messes up the ensiling, and you get such a high moisture content you can hardly deal with it. So.
Okay, so then when you did that mix, was a lot of trial and error? Is that kind of how you decided that mix yourself?
To some degree, but we did do a lot of research. We asked a lot of questions, and again, we went to Gabe Brown and these kind of guys a lot because they've done it so much, and he kind of helped us put together some mixes, because you really don't know. You're kind of shooting in the dark, so he kind of guided us in, what percentage of grains versus legumes and all these sorts of things, and to try and get that balance, because if you way overdo it on, say, oats, which is a very competitive plant, it's gonna compete pretty bad with some of your like peas, say, or legume type stuff. So it is definitely something you want to do your research on to find the right blend.
It's there's oats and barley, sunflowers, hairy vetch, berseem clover, kale, turnips, one more that's escaping me.
So did you come up with this mix yourself?
Yeah, more or less, yeah.
Okay. Do you have any favorite species that will always have a place in your cocktail mix?
Oh, the hairy vetch. That's the key. Yeah.
And why do you like it so much?
Well, the nitrogen fixing is phenomenal. Mm-hmm. And the mass and the volume, and it stays green so late in the year, and it's really an incredible plant.
Okay. Are there any species you found don't work well, or anything that you've cut out and won't try again?
Yeah, we tried millet last year to try and extend the green in the grasses, and it didn't have the heart. It wouldn't. It couldn't compete. Okay. So we scrapped that plan this year.
Oats, 40-10 peas, and hairy vetch, for sure. Those are three of the ones that start with. They grow good. I like the hairy vetch later in the year when it really gets its momentum. It really comes on later in the fall, and I've seen it freeze down with full blossoms on it. So, and it stays green. And so, if you're grazing, I think hairy vetch is a must. We've been working with some fall rye, and we haven't grown it as a. We've grown it to harvest it. We're trying to produce seeds, so we have grown it for pasture too. And I noticed any kind of winter grazing tends to kill it here in the winter. It freezes too hard, so we've kind of went away from that. If we're going to graze our rye, then we do it in the spring. We don't put cattle on it during the winter.
Are there any species or anything you found don't work well here or on your farm and your application?
Well, we have tried a little bit of Sudan grass and a few other ones. I haven't really seen anything that doesn't work. I don't have a lot of experience with a lot more. I've seen good results with the things that I've used here, and the sunflowers are there for the flower and for the stalk, for something for the hairy vetch to climb, and the 4010 peas, they're crazy once they get going. They just keep lodging and coming back up, and so something to crawl on was the idea. No, I mix it myself. I guess there's a place for buying pre-mixed seed, but you pay dearly for it. So it's not that complicated to mix two seeds together, so we do it ourselves.
Okay. What do you use to mix it? Do you have like a seed treater or silage?
Well, sometimes we just put it all in a truck, and then we unload it, and then put it back in. Maybe repeat that a couple times, and it's mixed. And then sometimes we just mix it right in the seed box as we're filling the seed box. We just mix it in and use our hands and stir it up. And even with the air drill, we might dump it in once and then unload it and put it back in, and it seems to be all right.
Yeah. So what we do is when we get our our small seed blends like the vetch and the turnips, it comes in 50-pound bags. So then we just run it through the auger, the oats and the barley. We just run back and forth between the two trucks, and we just dump the bags in, and we auger it all one way and turn around. We auger it all back, put our inoculants in, and it's blended just really nicely.
The small seeds, I got a little canola treater, and we treat them we mix them that way, like your clovers and brassicas and Phacelia, all that kind of stuff goes through one of them and gets mixed together. Our big seeds, I clean out my silage wagon really well and throw them all in. It works out quite nice because the wagon's got a scale on it, so you can scale in everything you got and you know exactly what you have when you're done.
We buy it pre-mixed through Nutrien, and before we bought a mixer that we could mix our own, so if we want to change something or add something else, we can mix it in there.
We buy most of our seed through the South Peace Grain in Dawson Creek, and they pre-blend a lot of the stuff. Although if I include cereals or say peas or anything like that, we usually have our own seed. And some of that I've just mixed as I'm filling the drill through the auger, filling the drill.
We actually, because we have the beef, we have silage mixer wagons. So we just throw everything in there and you can weigh it out and mix it really nice and works well.